So, what does this young deist, what does Benjamin Franklin do? Though I seldom attended any public worship, I still had an opinion of its propriety and of its utility when rightly conducted, and I regularly paid my annual subscription for the support of the only Presbyterian minister or meeting we had in Philadelphia. So he really doesn't go to the Presbyterian church anymore, but he still pays his tithes. Wow, Uncle Ben. He used to visit me sometimes as a friend and admonish me to attend his administrations, and I was now and then prevailed on to do so, once for 5 Sundays successfully. So he goes 5 Sundays in a row. Wow, setting a record. He had been, in my opinion, a good preacher. Perhaps I might have continued. He wasn't a good preacher, notwithstanding the occasion I had for the Sunday's leisure in my course of study. But his doctrines were chiefly either polemic arguments or explications of the peculiar doctrines of our sect, and were all to me very dry, uninteresting, and unedifying. So his sermons are boring. He doesn't see any point to them. And in addition, since not a single moral principle was inculcated or enforced, their aim seeming to be rather to make us Presbyterians than good citizens. So what's all this shakes out for Benjamin Franklin? Right? In addition to being boring and dry, not a single moral principle was inculcated or enforced, their aim seeming to be rather to make us Presbyterians than good citizens. So what does the religion, what should it be, according to Benjamin Franklin? It should contain moral principles, right? And make us good citizens. Interesting idea, right? If we think about this, right? So if we think about the purpose of religion, morality and good citizens, very different from what is taught in Christian churches today. Right? So now, a little bit further, he confined himself to 5 points only, as meant by the apostle: keeping holy the Sabbath day, being diligent in reading the Holy Scriptures, attending duly the public worship, partaking of the sacrament, paying a due respect to God's ministers. These might all be good things, but as they were not the kind of good things that I expected from that text, I despaired of ever meeting with them from any other, was disgusted, and attended his preaching no more. So, how does this shake out? What does it teach us, right? The Enlightenment's the age of reason, thinking logically. So, going to the Presbyterian Church and listening to this minister doesn't pass the test for Benjamin Franklin. So what do? You have to be logical. You have to be rational. You have to be reasonable. You stop going, right? But that doesn't mean that you stop believing in the deity, in God. I had some years before composed a little liturgy or form of prayer for my own private use entitled Articles of Belief and Acts of Religion. I returned to the use of this and went no more to the public assemblies. So what do? You make your own prayer book. You keep worshiping, but you do it, as according to your own means for what makes sense, what works with you. Very interesting. Now, what we get next in the autobiography is Benjamin Franklin's plan for attaining moral perfection. When he lists out his virtues, his precepts for living a good life, not the 10 Commandments that we find in the Holy Bible. We have 13 of them with little thoughts for each one. Then, what Franklin gives us is a way to track them, right? So what do we see here? A lot of people don't really think about with the plan for moral perfection. Moral perfection. We can have and live a morally perfect life on earth. Think about this, guys, right? Think back to the period overview. This is an outgrowth of humanism. What is humanism? The emphasis is upon not necessarily on religious teachings and church teachings. We see kind of moving away from church teachings here and coming up with your own religious principles. But with humanism, it's the belief that human values need to be emphasized and stressed. So what do we see here? Moral perfection, the belief that we can live a morally perfect life on earth. Wow, really interesting. And again, humanism, this started in the Renaissance. A lot of what we find in the Enlightenment has its roots in the Renaissance, and we're building and we're moving forward. So what do we see here? Right, so Franklin is going through and marking all of his different virtues as going through, and whenever he breaks one of them, he puts a little blot on his record. Goes in and then details a lot about how he really struggled with order. So I guess Benjamin Franklin, like many people, was having trouble organizing his workspace, organizing his life. As go through and you read, and he goes through and he shares his schedule, and a lot of people just kind of, just skim on through this without slowing down and recognizing, what is Franklin doing here? What is he doing? Well, believe it or not, this is the first self-help book published in America. It's woven into his autobiography. Today, self-help books fill the bookstores. Millions of dollars are made each year from the selling of self-help books. So what does this tell us? This tells us one of the things that Benjamin Franklin firmly believed in, that the work of everyone, of humanity, is to help each other, right? We should help your fellow citizen, right? How does he do this? He shares his tips, his precepts, his virtues that he came up with on his own for living a successful life, and then boom, puts it in his autobiography and publishes it. Yeah, so everybody can adopt and do as he did to live a morally perfect life. Quick little side note, all those different scientific inventions and advancements that Benjamin Franklin came up with, guess what, everybody? He did not patent them. So what does that mean? Is that anybody could come up with, just adopt those different inventions and use them for free without having to, pay a fee for following and using those inventions. Thank you, Uncle Ben. Wow. So again, our very brief look into just these sections here, these snippets of the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, America's Man of the Enlightenment. So until we meet again, be well, do good work, and keep in touch.